gathering here are from the shops, the offices, and even the mansions of London. They sincerely believe in the existence and the power of the supreme spirit of evil, Satan.
Welcome back to another episode of Rise to Liberty. Today we have a very special show and a very special guest, the return of William Ramsey. How you doing today, William?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. Glad to be with you.
Yeah, of course. Always a pleasure to have you on. So just real quick, I don't typically do this, but content warning for anybody who might be sensitive to these sorts of topics. This is a continuation of my Satanic Panic is Real series. And we're just going to go with it. And there's some pretty dark details regarding this case. So, my audience and your audience are definitely more than smart enough to decide if it's something that they can or cannot handle. So viewer discretion is advised. And that's the last warning you get. So other than that, we will be discussing the Hosanna church scandal, which conveniently is also I would say, one of the main inspirations for True Detective Season 1. It does kind of seem like there's a little bit influence from some other cases maybe, but this is like the big main thing that kind of I guess spawned the whole first season. So with that, would you like to kind of give like a brief overview of the case of exactly what we're talking about?
We're talking about a very well documented criminal case that took place in Ponchatoula, Louisiana, and it came to the attention of people in 2005, and it involved a church. So at a surface level, this was a functioning church, and it was actually involved the pastor's son. So his name was Louis LaMonica Jr. His dad was a very successful Protestant preacher who at one point, this church, Hosanna, had 1,000 parishioners. So he had quite the flock of people, and it started to dwindle down, and the son didn't seem to be able to carry the mantle or the baton of his dad. And these two people, him and his cohort, whose name I can't remember right now, but they have life sentences.
So they actually Bernard.
Yeah, Bernard. Thank you. They were convicted. There were appeals of their convictions. Their convictions were upheld on appeal, and they have life sentences. They are in jail. So currently in jail in Louisiana in the state. So this case is really fascinating. And it kind of got lost because of like your theme, which is this is all satanic panic. How can you guys be worried about this? This case was also interesting for a wide variety. Super dark, guys. This is so not safe for work or home or around children. Just to re-emphasize what Jacob said, like it's got all the darkest themes imaginable. And I think they got away with stuff. Honestly, I think that all the full story wasn't told. And even the detective, one of the detectives, it's fairly well memorialized on a really good segment on Vice for 20 minutes. The detective said we just saw part of it.
wild that Vice used to do some pretty good reporting back in the day. Bias, a lot of it, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with bias if you're upfront about it, in my opinion. And even the stuff that was incredibly biased from them, it was just good reporting either way. And unfortunately, they just don't provide that sort of real journalism for, I don't want to say underground, but not mainstream, just not the mainstream things. And unfortunately, we don't have a good we don't have a good source for that sort of information anymore, since they've just gone downhill. I actually just rewatched the Vice documentary. It's great. In fact, I think I'll throw it in the episode description after the show. It's called The True Detective, I believe, or the Real True Detective.
The Real True Detective, yeah.
And it's 20 minutes long. It gives a really good overview of the case, of kind of what the case is, and talks to the lead prosecutor, Don Wall. Interviews a couple of other people. Honestly, I would love to see what they didn't put in, what they ended up putting on the cutting room floor. So
yeah, me too. But there's almost lines from that documentary, which came out after True Detective, are the same as some of the lines from the True Detective, which I think was released in 2014. So it is interesting, like how real life emulated this so-called fictional tale.
Right.
But and like we were talking in the pre-show, the True Detective is really seen as kind of like a watermark or a benchmark,
right,
in American kind of episodic drama, I guess, in a way. Is put, like, people always go back to it, and I think they're on the 4th or 5th season now.
Yeah.
And those themes, they overlap with a lot of interesting things in American culture. So it is, and people do watch them. So
yeah,
I think they're working on season 5 now, or season 6 or something.
Yeah, I think they just released the 4th one, if I remember correctly.
It's Jodie Foster, right?
Right. Everything I've read, I've read a lot of negative reviews.
It's very indigenous, I mean, is a way to put it, and very female focused, which is a different change. They've actually kind of stepped out of like the comfort zone. I think we were talking in the pre-show. I think that a lot of like white males like the first season, is because it was male focused. It really was that kind of white male thing, also kind of a crime show and an occult investigative. And a lot of these other ones, there was the black guy, Methuselah, I forgot his name, but that was season 3. And then season 4 is Jodie Foster, and there's a lot of like indigenous. I think her other police officer in there was like half indigenous, half Latino or something. So like a real super diverse hire, all caps diversity hire or whatever. I think she was good. Like, I actually enjoyed season 4. So but I enjoyed watching all of them, actually. But I think season 1 is really extraordinary.
The crown jewel. Yeah. Well, you actually put together a presentation. I had just watched the interview you did over with the California crew. Great episode. Definitely go watch it. But what do you say we jump into this and start?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, there's a lot to go into, but like I said, just another warning. This is probably one of the darkest cases imaginable.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of dark stuff. Like West Memphis is pretty brutal too, but this one, and it's what's interesting. This isn't a lot of speculation. There's court documents. There was a 200-page confession, which is not public to my knowledge, but pieces of it are actually read in this Vice thing with Taboni, I think is the woman's name. But she did a great job on that.
Oh yeah.
It's a shame what's happened to Vice too. It really has.
Yeah, it really is.
It was you're right though. It was the edgy kind of journalism that made it sensational.
Yeah, it was all the stuff that will never get picked up by mainstream media. It's all the stuff people want to know about or whatever, but no, like, it's not polite conversation or whatever. It's real life. you know, like they would interview homeless people, or they would interview people with super interesting jobs. You know, it's so great, but just, you know,
Some of those things are
nothing.
out there. Like one of a
Right.
great site is Great White Underbelly or whatever that is. Have you ever heard
Oh
of that
yeah,
site?
soft white underbelly.
Soft White Underbelly is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just sitting down, literally letting somebody talk. It is
Mhm.
super fascinating. Like these people
Oh
with
yeah.
whatever their story is, drug addict, sex worker,
Right.
drug dealers. I mean, it's just
Pimps, all sorts of stuff.
people
Yeah.
are interesting. So it's like that. What happens is they get politicized and woke, or they get some kind of
Right.
mind virus where it's just like, who's
Well, and
promoting? Like, just let the person talk. You know, they're interested with this.
well, and nowadays it's always you know, making sure that the investors are happy, you know.
Right.
And
They're
then
answering
I mean
somebody else.
that's destroyed video games now. Like nobody's willing to take risks, because if you take a risk, then you might end up upsetting the investors or whatever, you know, and it's a joke. So on that note, before we really dive into this, I wanted to real quickly highlight something out of, in my opinion, one of the most important books of current parapolitical research, or just research in general, and that's Eye of the Chicken Hawk by Simon Dovey. Absolutely amazing, right up there with Program to Kill and everything, Ultimate Evil, that sort of thing. And I kind of wanted to just read in full just the first paragraph out of his author's note and apply it to this conversation. And I'm sure other conversations that we will have in the future, but this is independent research. This is an advantage in two respects. First, researchers with institutional accreditation are restricted in their inquiries by taboo. That is, the fear of losing credibility through expressing unacceptable ideas or even facts. I, or you and myself in this case, are unrestricted in this regard. Secondly, because I lack credibility, which I love that he put that, the burden of proof falls more heavily upon me, as I cannot take certain liberties in reaching conclusions. My book reflects the reality of this, and in my opinion, having no credibility is an asset so long as one is aware of it and strives to demonstrate it through the substance of what they represent. As a result, almost every paragraph in this book, or everything that is done on my channel, is going to be footnoted or easily researched. I will always provide sources to anyone who is interested, with the sources from which it was derived. This is not to achieve any kind of academic veneer. I am not an academic, and this is not an academic book. Academics cannot research the subject dealt with here because it is taboo for them to do so. And I wanted to highlight that real quick because I actually believe that what parapolitics or conspiracy, whatever people want to call it, I believe this actually provides a really important, a really important aspect to society, considering what we seem to be living through nowadays. This is really looking at the truth of things, and that's always been my focus, has been the truth. And because I myself don't possess certain credentials, or like Simon put it, a academic veneer, it's actually, I'm held to a higher standard. You're held to a higher standard. We always have to hold the truth well above what anyone else in the mainstream media would be held to. And honestly, I think that's why it makes us better. So,
Amen.
So, on that note, let's switch over here to this presentation.
I have a lot of slides. It's based on the Vice video, also a few slides from the show itself, but also just some of the information that's available through court documents and where Hosanna is I show it on the map. It's north of New Orleans, almost directly east of Baton Rouge.
Real quick, what just for the sake of the audience, what years are we talking about?
Well, the events that were where they were arrested was 2005. What had happened is there was some kind of internal thing with this group. It's a network, guys. There was actually a cop who was part of the network who worked at the office that was arresting these guys. You can't believe it. He was charged with obstruction of justice. So like you think like, oh yeah, these guys are, no, this guy's involved in the most heinous stuff. And this is almost like a finder's case. They had, and I'll show it here. They had tons of electronics, filming, computers at the time. Like, why do you need 100 external hard drives? Right. Unless you're up to something. Like, give me a break. This is some kind of something. So they were networked, but 2005 is when it happened. There was some kind of internal thing where LaMonica's wife took their kids and went to Chicago. And 2 weeks later, LaMonica Jr. walked into the police office, the police station to confess.
Right.
And then everything was retracted and the kids' testimonies were retracted. But the judge is like, oh.
This is the most interesting aspect to me anyways, regarding this case, is that he walked into the police station unprovoked. Yeah. Just like, what? that's and then he proceeds to confess to satanic rituals, child sex crimes, child molestation, animal sacrifices, and bestiality, just to name, a broad spectrum of subjects
involving a lot of people.
Right.
And it's like sex with his own boy kids and and all kinds of drawings. So it was just super graphic and like really very dark aggressive. Stuff. Yeah.
Very aggressive. And then using the cover of the church, it's just so symbolically and, just in your face. It's amazing to me. And I always go back to I always go back to satanic crime never happens. It's like, really? Really? Because it does. It's everywhere. Just because you don't look at it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. In fact, these are some people I try to have understanding, but when these things exist and you intentionally ignore it, you're part of the problem. So
a lot of these guys are just repeating what they've been told on TV, and they haven't done any reading or research. So it's a different kind of media thing where if you talk to somebody who only drinks from that trough, they're going to have a completely different worldview. Like even that was the whole thing of Vice, is they were doing something different than TV. Like the corporate media is really a pox on the entire culture of the United States. It didn't used to be. It happened in one generation. But the people who own all that are probably all Satanists.
Right.
I've repeated this before, but it's from Owen Benjamin. He's supposedly a comedian. I mean, I think he's a comedian, but he said something very astute, which said that it's the conspirators who says there's no conspiracy. And I think that's 100% right. That's because they're in on it. So the people who are doing these kind of eyes wide shut stuff or Epstein network are people who are running the media. So they're all trafficking people. And that's the whole scary thing about this whole story is like, they seem to be networked, like the Finders, and something else weird is going on. I don't think they got the whole story.
No, not
much like Rustin Cole and True Detective at the end. We didn't get all of it, what he said.
Right. And having just watched True Detective for my first time, the first season all the way through, that right at the very end, when it's the scene between both of them as they're sitting at the hospital, and Rust makes a very interesting observation that looking up at the night sky, that the darkness holds more space, basically referring to, the evilness in the world is, outweighs all the light or the stars. And I think that that's very, very poetic, especially considering that that's so true. because it seems like every time we turn around, something like this is being exposed or covered up again. There's a recent case in Ohio with, all of those kids from 18 to a year and a half. No record of them ever existing because they move all the time. The mom looked like she was on drugs, and just all sorts of just terrible things all the time. So the darkness definitely holds more real estate, so to speak.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's really something else. I think the ending, the kind of philosophizing, is the opposite of the stark, bleak philosophizing of Rusty Cole at the beginning. So it can be easily just, there's 8 episodes, but those bookends are very different.
Oh yeah.
And it's that process that he becomes I don't want to, I mean, this is a spoiler for the whole show, but he is the true detective, Rusty Cole. Really is.
Yes, he is, for sure. So, yeah, you were mentioning that it's where the church was.
If you go to the next, I can do the next slide. Here it is. Yeah. This is the map. People can see that Ponchatoula is kind of lightly ringed around, kind of at the center of the map there, which is directly about, I think it's 45 miles east of Baton Rouge, and on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain from New Orleans. And the church was destroyed in Katrina and then rebuilt.
Right.
And so it was actually these cases, they were arrested just before Katrina. It's kind of a weird kind of cosmic event or something, because they were arrested in June 2005 and Katrina was, I think, November 2005 or something like that. And it's not the same church, so it's not named Hosanna anymore. It's like Christian Life Church.
Yeah, but there is still a church there. Then it was basically just repackaged, repainted, rebuilt.
Yeah. It does happen. That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Right. Which is incredibly interesting. In fact, when I was looking earlier, I was watching, like I said, that documentary again, just kind of refreshing myself with the documentary. And what was very interesting, there were screenshots of the search warrant. And I started noticing, so the documents will show like item number, a description of the item, where it was found. And I started noticing under the where it was found section, it says building 2, like for instance, it says building 2, room 45. So we're talking a massive place here. 45 rooms, and that's, if that's all there is, and so just looking at the list real quick, building 2, room 45, 43, 43, 43, room 18, room 30, room 30, it's like, this was a massive place. And I find it interesting. Yeah. It was almost, according to the law enforcement, it was almost exclusively, according to them, pretty much that it took place only in the youth center of the building.
What a choice. Let's do the youth center, guys.
Right. And I honestly just don't believe that it was, that it only took place there. Now knowing that the building, it seems that there was more than one building, maybe, because it says building 2. So I don't know, different size buildings or different purpose buildings, but at the very least, 45 rooms, which is a massive building, unless they're just the tiniest rooms ever, which I have a hard time believing. So just wanted to point that out, is that this is actually a really large complex, basically, before it was destroyed.
Right. And Ponchatoula is not that big, so it had to have been a big church.
Right.
Just wonder if I can find it on the map. I wonder if I can find the address, because then you could see the building, how big the building is.
Well, and what's interesting, so Louis LaMonica, when his father was the pastor, all the information I've found seems to discuss the fact that there were thousands of people that attended the church at its height. So, I mean, if this place is large enough to accommodate thousands of people.
It's big. It's big on the map. I can bring up. Let me see if I can bring up the map. See if I can share the screen. This is it. It's now. I guess it was an Assembly of God. Can you see? Can you bring that map up?
Yeah.
See if I can get
Oh wow. Yeah.
So there's the three buildings, like you said. 1, 2,
Right.
3. Let's see what it looks like from the front. That's it. Yep. That's it. They redid it. That's that whole glass now is there. It wasn't there.
Right.
The sign's taken down. But that's definitely at 2571 Veterans Avenue.
Right.
So they're
interesting.
Yeah, it's huge. Mission International Community Center.
Looks like a pretty big complex, you know?
Yeah, when they were there in 2005, there was imagine only 15 people, and they were living there too. So,
right.
See if we can get a side shot.
What year did Katrina
There's
happen?
the buildings right there. So 1, 2, 3.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Katrina was late 2005.
Oh man, and there's I've been reading more and more stories. There's a rabbit hole I actually have fallen down a couple of times where there were what we know as serial killers that decided to be quite active after Katrina because of the sheer lawlessness that was rampant all over the place. So as regarding, the black market for human trafficking, child trafficking, I'm sure it was just business was hot, I'm sure.
Which is just happening in Venezuela after those 2 big earthquakes back to back, right?
Right.
Like there's allegations of people like NGOs, like what happened in Haiti. Like, people are showing up buying kids. Like, this is the new trend. Like, wow. So it happens after there are freaking vultures who pop in after these huge events and people disappear.
Right.
It's unbelievable stuff.
Yeah, it really is. So yeah, like I said, the thing that shocks me, LaMonica came in unprovoked, starts confessing to all of these things, claimed that the crimes were committed in a youth room. The windows were blackened out. And let's see, I'm just reading through my notes real quick. One thing I also thought was interesting was that the church at the time, I'm not sure what its affiliation is now, but at the time was connected to the Protestants, which anyone who's, done some of this work or even just looked into the Protestants at all, there's a lot of connections to the CIA all the way through, especially through the 80s regarding satanic panic. There were tons of these mega churches who were pushing satanic panic propaganda all the way through the 80s and early 90s. And they just so happened to either be funded by or ran by agents. It's just interesting. And
I think there's more work to be done on Louis LaMonica's dad. Like, what's his dad like? If he's able to put together 1,000-person church, he's probably a big-wig for sure in Ponchatoula, but it may be even in Louisiana. And it gets weird, like Louisiana history. Like, if people watch that show, there's the Tuttle. Tuttle is the kind of pastor who has the dark VHS videotape, right?
Right.
And then he's also, Tuttle's brother is involved in politics as well. And so that, I think, emulates something that happened in Louisiana. There's a Landry family. It's almost like the Bush family of Texas, but the Landry family is like all involved in business and politics, or was for a long time in Louisiana. They were kind of like the power family there.
I mean, kind of funny too, because it seems like there's either a small handful or at the very least one, the United States doesn't have royalty, but it seems as though we actually do in secret. And it seems like every state or, region has these families. You know, I'm from Utah, and we clearly have LDS royalty. You know,
Romneys are all over the place.
right? Exactly.
There was like a machine in Chicago with the I can't remember the family there, but they're here. It's the Gettys in California. The
right.
Gettys. I mean, basically, Newsom is a Getty,
right?
By default. I mean, he's in business with one of the Getty sons.
Oh,
he's probably in office because he's not very bright. He's not he's not
really
like a self-made man at all.
Right. Seems very lucky.
His dad was a lawyer in San Francisco, and he went to all the right schools. So he got into St. Ignatius it's a what do you call it? A Jesuit school in San Francisco, and it's known as like that's your entry into society. Like maybe on the East Coast, you go to a Ivy League school and you network, and that's how you get power.
Yeah, it's who you know, not
San Francisco. You go from St. Ignatius to the Olympic Club, and then you're kind of in San Francisco's.
Yeah. So once again, it's the fraternities and sororities that are really pulling these people in.
Yeah.
Which I don't know about you. I've never understood the fraternity thing. You know, maybe it's just me. I don't get it, you know, like
that was the old way to enter. That was the old way to network and get ahead, was to join these fraternities. Especially, I mean, the fraternities, I think, have become turned into more animal houses, but they didn't always used to be. And it is a secret society, guys. They have Masonic codes and terms and words and secret initiations and candles and burning stuff.
Right.
They used to, at least. So that stuff is really real. Like, it's like the same kind of stuff that happens in Skull and Bones, like your brothers. That's what you call them, a fraternity brother. That's the whole idea.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. I mean, I understand, you know, the purpose of networking. I love networking. But I don't know, just the whole structure and the idea of the fraternity just is really, really interesting. In the chat, Tim West, you don't want to get jerked off in a coffin, Jacob? No, not really. You know, especially, you know, with a bunch of other members, you know, watching. You know,
it's interesting that people don't think that's real. The Getty son was known to sleep in a coffin. John Paul Getty Jr. And he was the benefactor of Kenneth Anger. Kenneth Anger said that he didn't have to pay for international flights. He would just call Getty Jr. and he would pay for him to fly to to England. We just cover expenses and stuff. So these high level people oftentimes are occultists and Satanists, and I think that's kind of like what the secret is behind. I mean, that's involved in the narrative of True Detective, is that these are wealthy people whose surface lives are really superficial. They're just facades.
Right. Well, and I find it interesting because, like I had mentioned, it's always satanic crime never happens, but then when these cases like this do, you know, eventually squeak out, because they're going to, they can't hide all of them all the time. They have this narrative that, oh, this is just isolated. This is it. It's not a ring. It's not a larger network or anything.
That's what they did. That's what they did for Epstein.
Right.
Epstein was a lone pedo.
It was just his sick collection.
Yep. But no, he was fully networked, and they all knew it. They all had to have known.
Right.
And they're all lying because so many people got involved in that, and he blackmailed them through his own actions.
Well, and to me, it seems like, you know, Manson, in a sense. Like, everyone now pretends to not know him, but back then everyone knew him. They knew what he was doing and what he was up to. They want to pretend like, oh, it's like we didn't know who he was. Yes, you did. You don't get to just start hanging out with Brian Wilson because you're a nobody and nobody knows you. You know, it's like it's just interesting, you know, to try and hide that network. And you can see this all over the place. This isn't unique to any one case or any one story. So I just find it very interesting. So you want to kind of get into like exactly what is this case? What did investigators end up finding?
Well, after this 200-page confession, they found some of the darkest stuff imaginable. This guy was confessed to like all kinds of the darkest things imaginable. You enumerated them early, and it started. He was arrested immediately. I don't think he ever got out of jail. He was arrested, tried, convicted, and then they brought in other people around, and there was a roundup. There were other people invested, and this is a really good article that's still on the internet. I think you can check it out, and it's from it was from 2014 after True Detective came out, but it goes into this they all had nicknames, so it was almost like a criminal gang. You know, that's what criminal gangs do. They never use their first names, or this, it's always Bobby or Joey or Fat Joe or whatever. That's how
it's to keep the mob thing.
Yeah, it's a mob thing. It's like to keep the cops off. Like you don't say, my name is John Smith Jr. and this is my social security number. So it's all sketchy stuff. But this is also like, oh, it's a sick pedophile ring. They even say it on this article. The title is this is Daily Mail. But this is so he walked in on the 16th of May 2005 and still was called pastor. But
wow.
Satanic rituals, child abuse, and animal sacrifice, that's what he admitted to. Who knows if like they need to see if like other crimes are committed around this time.
Right. But
these are the guys. So there's LaMonica, that's his wife, who left like 2 weeks early, went to Chicago. That's Austin Trey Bernard, who also has a life sentence. He was known as the mastermind. And really dark stuff happened with him and his 1-year-old daughter, which is crazy. And then there's his wife. She had called the sheriff to spill the beans on the cult just 2 days before LaMonica made his confession. So something was going on, like it was falling apart internally, I think.
Right.
And these are all like the guys here. I mean, you can just go through this, like confession, Mail Online saw it. LaMonica sat down and announced, I want to talk about the dedication to Satan of a baby. I was held at the church upstairs in what was called the youth room. It's covered in black, like black paper to keep it dark. There was a pentagram, book of spells and temptations. And this happens so often in these crimes because the cops are really focused on the criminal acts, not the kind of ideology that was going on. They never follow up on what books they had or who they were inspired by, or if there was a larger like satanic group who inspired them or were around.
Right.
Because like even in the West Memphis 3, they were not like just 3 guys alone. They were networked. There were groups of people, and there were lists by the cops of other people that the West Memphis 3 were hanging out. They literally had a guy who was some kind of overlord. They called Lucifer, another nickname. And that guy was never identified. So like they could have unraveled like a huge criminal network. So this is it. But then here it is. All different ages. Then 36, 45, Paul Fontenot. These names are repeated. This is how you know Hosanna influenced True Detective, because these names are repeated in True Detective. He literally, Pizzolatto literally lifted the same last names from Hosanna into True Detective. Fontenot was one of them. And I think Labat was one too that he lifted in there. He just put it in there. I think Fontenot was one of the darker ones.
Right. And so they literally did find a satanic ritual abuse ring.
Right. Traumatizing stuff, but had to be. They actually dug up the back of the church. They didn't find anything, but they were looking for evidence. You can see some pictures. I think they're in that documentary by Vice where they literally had heavy machinery like digging up the back looking for something. They never found it.
Right. Yeah, and there was an interesting point in that documentary when they meaning the FBI, in fact, it was I made sure to write this down. Tom Tedder, Special Agent FBI, Baton Rouge office. Special Agent Tedder mentioned the fact that they never found any evidence of satanic rituals. And it's like, really? Then where did all that come from? Like that doesn't just hit the news because, if there's actually not anything satanic about these things, then that actually never gets brought up, right? Like we have the Charlie Kirk stuff going on right now. There's no satanic, involvement in this case, at least that we know of. And so there's no news being reported on that. But then you have a case like this where it's all over the place. It's reported almost in everything reported on it. And then to say that there's no like satanic anything about it, just it's odd. It's odd to me.
It is odd. It's very odd. I mean, I think that there's like, you're up against this whole kind of culture and
right
ideology that satanic influence crimes don't exist. And it goes back to Lanning. There's a whole bunch of people who were involved in not, and it goes back to McMartin and the witch hunt narrative and all this other stuff.
Right.
Like, so you have satanic panic and witch hunt are like almost corollaries because, oh yeah, this is a witch hunt. Well, what if you're a witch? They've had that. Hold on, just I gotta get my cat.
Oh, you're fine.
Anyway, so they have like this whole thing, and then the effect on people is to, if you're investigating these, they immediately put you into the lunatic box. Oh, this it's already, and then they rely on experts. So there's a whole like almost a list of these things I've been through. I've seen them all. There's the reliance. Well, Ken Lanning says there's no satanics. It's just pedophile cover.
Right.
So that's it. And then you're crazy, and there's no evidence, and there's no such thing as a satanic influence crime. And then it goes back to what I said about Owen Benjamin, where it's the conspirators who said there's no conspiracy. It's conspiracy. And then you realize, like, whoa, these people are evil. Like, I forgot what the guy's name. The FBI agent who investigated McMartin said that next to Aquino, Crowley, and LaVey, Ken Lanning was one of the most evil people ever because he perpetuated this stuff.
Right. I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah. But this is like really dark. Like there's like, this is a story like when you, like I've read so much about satanic kind of occult crimes. There are multiple stories from different people where people will shapeshift. There's literal like stories of shape-shifting, and literally Louis LaMonica Jr. said he would shapeshift.
Right.
Like, it's really incredible. And there's somebody in one of the victims of Epstein said Epstein shapeshifted. Which is really dark. And he's an occultist, and he's super dark and a cannibal. So I do believe that I could prove in a court of law that Epstein was eating people, eating human beings.
And yeah, I made sure to write this down. LaMonica claimed demonic possession, and that his face would distort. Which is,
it's right here. He says it right here. Like, it's right in this article. Like, according to meetings, certain girls will be picked to have sexual relationship. Guys would line up one by one. They'd have sex with it's group sex. There was men and women. There were feces around, and there was urine. These are all consistent. Satanic rituals who become distorted by the devil, and that demons would change him into an animal, a snake, a fox, wolf, spiders. And this is all very consistent with like the masks of the animal mask and rituals and these things, is because they're emulating some of the stuff that may happen in these demonic rituals.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I found it interesting as well that, so I was going to look into this a little bit more, but not only were they specifically sacrificing cats, and I believe other animals, but cats were the big thing. Which largely had to do with, blood magic, the blood rituals. But they specifically mentioned in the documents foxes, fox hair, snakes, and specifically, and I thought this was odd, wolf spiders. Now, I think the wolf thing is very interesting because in fairy tales, the wolf is always, antagonizing, especially antagonizing and hunting the children. almost in every fairy tale. It's always the wolves. And so a wolf spider, I just thought that was kind of a very specific thing. That was very, very odd.
It shows that they're detailed, right? These are not casual practitioners. They've got and this New Orleans is an epicenter for the occult voodoo. There's literal voodoo shops where you can get all these implements. And it sounds to me that these guys were connected with that kind of underground. If you remember, a really scary movie, Angel Heart takes place there too in Louisiana.
Yes.
So they're kind of reminiscent of that as well. So it's a huge African American population there. I think that 70% of New Orleans is African American, with a lot of voodoo and all kinds of different stuff going on there.
Right.
So I think that some of that stuff seeped into what these guys are doing. They seem to have knowledge of it. This article goes on to say they all had these nicknames: the lady, the mastermind, and the chief. He said the secret ceremony. Monica said the ceremony started in 1999. He was arrested in 2005. So that's 6 years. Carried on when they separated. He moved out of the church building. It was Bernard's wife who took the kid and went to Ohio. So they were calling stuff. So I think they knew the heat was on, he knew.
So just to address this comment real quick, neither of us are conflating the two. But
it's a form of occultism, guys. Sorry.
It is occultism.
Yeah. It may not be Satanism per se, but it's occultism. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. 100%. 100%. But yeah, as a former Satanist myself, obviously voodoo has nothing to do with Satanism, nor does Satanism have anything to do with voodoo. So, but
yeah, so there's a cop involved. Bond of trust irrevocably broken. There's a recruit, including not just a man of the cloth, but a man of the law too.
Right.
It made sense that he was a sheriff's deputy, Chris Labatt's in action.
Right.
So
which
they went
that detail gets glossed over.
Yeah, sure does.
Sure
does. He does not do anything because he's in on it, baby. That's why.
Right. Exactly. Also, we were not saying that Hosanna was voodoo adjacent. I will blatantly say that it was satanic, though. They said it was satanic.
They said they were trying to contact the devil. What I'm saying, I mean, I don't know. Some people are deliberately misconstrue words for whatever.
Oh, of course.
I'm saying that this happened in an involvement where people go to New Orleans because it's an esoteric center. You can get tarot readings, there's shops all over New Orleans.
And down in the French Quarter, I mean, it's the mixture of New Age, occultism. I mean, I think I just repeated myself, New Age and occult is the same thing, but
occult is a broad phrase. You can substitute esotericism. It's fine. That's
right. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting, but the fact that this happened down here, and honestly, I had never really heard about this case other than in passing, sort of.
It's not covered by almost anybody. I don't think anybody else ever covered this case.
Right.
In the traditional Vice, of course, but in the traditional media or even in the alternate podcast media, people don't know about it.
Right.
And it's so important because how important True Detective is.
Right.
As a kind of, like I said, a watermark or a high watermark of the kind of new episodic shows and culture that aren't films, not necessarily TV shows, but now on Netflix, they're just almost everything is 3 episodes or 6 episodes or whatever. But this is interesting. This Mail Online, really, like you said, they point this out. When Bernard shared a notebook which he wrote of the abuse, Brown took the writing and described his stomach turning to Labatt and was left wondering why nothing came of it. So there's an obstruction of justice charge.
Right.
It did not occur to him that the gun-toting lawman, seen right here on the bottom right, was himself one of the group, which Bernard later referred to as perverted musketeers, one for all and all for one. Strange.
Jeez.
And I don't know why this guy had all the charges dropped. So he's walking free, it sounds like. It may not have the goods on.
Right. Yeah, there actually were several people that got very, very light sentences, from what I understand. And there were a few people that definitely never ended up spending any time, or that they got a light sentence, such as like probation for some of this.
So one by one interrogated. So this is a big like police involvement. I think the guy on the Vice video said he walked in, talked to LaMonica, and was busy for 3 months. So it wasn't like they just opened and shut the case, or like, oh, we just did 1 week.
Right.
And they had a
this
whole
was extensive.
Yeah. And you can see in the video, which was I think from 2014, that they had a whole trailer of evidence. So they had this huge amount of evidence
just sitting there.
Right. It's and it's independent, but it's like a whole like semi truck trailer, right?
Yeah. I mean, it even included drywall, which,
and that's what they said is there was some kind of writing you could only see with black
light. Yeah. Which blew my mind. This is very intentional. This is also somebody who knows exactly what they're doing.
It reflects what was in the True Detective, right? There's writing on the walls and scribbling on the walls.
Right.
Damien Echols is in New Orleans. I think he's centered in New Orleans right now. He went
because he got kicked out of Salem, right?
Yeah, he went from there to Salem to New York to New Orleans. So he's in New Orleans.
And there is that. Oh, their name is escaping me. The trans process member, Peorage.
When the process church moved from England to the north of Mexico to New Orleans.
Right.
They were headquartered in New Orleans during the early 60s. There's actually weird overlaps between them and some of these characters from the JFK assassination. Because one of these guys, I think his name was Baumler, he was associated with Bannister, and Baumler incorporated the Process Church in New Orleans as a business.
Of course.
So people who say that New Orleans is just, it's a border town with a lot of like almost like a Wild West underground too. It's super lawless too. It's so dangerous. When I was there, I was like, wow, this place is dangerous.
Genesis. Thank you.
Yeah, Genesis.
Yes. There's pictures of them together. There's video. I think they did like a short film or something while they were down there together. It's incredibly odd.
One more thing, just to break in. I've tied Genesis Peorage to Jeffrey Epstein through a guy named Joy Ito. Joy Ito was one of Genesis's friends. He used to stay with. Genesis would stay with him. And Peorage is like one of the real first trans activists.
Right.
And he wasn't just an activist. He believed that the trans movement would be like the avant-garde of Satan's like army. Like these trans people would be that. He's a very important figure in the trans movement that nobody even really mentions or brings up. And I write about him in my book, Children of Beast. He's passed away now.
Tim. Just Googled that thing. Ew. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, this case is incredible. It's just something else.
While this is kind of the topic, there's one detail of the West Memphis 3 that just keeps sticking out to me, and it gets glossed over so much. And it's the detail of when Damien basically knew he was up shit creek without a paddle, and he told the investigators that he would tell them the truth of everything if he could speak to his mother. And she comes in, they speak, and then he clams up. In your opinion, like, do you think this is related to some of the larger like occult activities? Now, the reason I ask is because there were always occult activities there in the area. Of course, there's also major occult activities across the river over in Memphis itself. But she was, admittedly, it's proven that she was the one that was always getting him these occult books, taking him to go to the library and encouraging this sort of stuff. And it just kind of seems weird that she's involved when you really start looking at it.
She sure seems to be. I mean, even that same year when they were arrested in 1993, you can see this in the court documents and probably on the Wayback Machine. She was over at the river's edge at a bonfire, and somebody got shot and died, like literally one of her roommates. And so they were out late at night, very strange. And I don't think they were ever charged, but there was elements of like somebody hid the gun, if I remember correctly. So I do think that Eccles grew up in an environment that was, the mom never worked. You know, she was both of those two parents, both Baldwin and Eccles, were very strange trailer park people. Like Baldwin's mom would just disappear for 3 or 4 days. So the Baldwin was just like a street kid, and so Eccles in that same way. Like there wasn't a strong
literal latchkey kids. Yeah. So which makes so much sense.
Yeah, and she had to have known he was a reader, and there, like you said, there's stuff in the court. Like my mom would take me to bookstores to find books, like to find books for him. So she was facilitating certain things, and she seemed to make apologies for him. And I'm doing a show tomorrow with Roberta Glass. We're going to cover just Exhibit 500, which tells a lot of the stories about him. Everything that happened leading up to May 5th, 1993. And I mean, it's just fascinating because he was just on Drew Pinsky. He's like a nationwide figure. Like, and apparently he's taking a break. I don't know what's going on with him, but it is weird that it kind of overlaps with this and the fact that he moved to New Orleans. And there's actually videos of Eccles like traveling around New Orleans talking about the occult spots. So it's like it's so strange how this kind of all this stuff is like in this environment exists in the psychosphere or whatever.
Well, and what's interesting is, you know, this occult underground network that the communities, there's way more people than you think. Or you as in, you know, the broader everyone. But in actuality, it's not all that big, you know? Like there's a lot of people, right? But the movers and the shakers, there's not a lot of people. It's a pretty close-knit, tight circle. It's almost like, you know, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, almost like everyone within occult circles, people that take it seriously, people that you know, attend rituals or whatever, you're only 2 to 3 people away from almost anyone, you know. And there's people that you may never meet or may never even hear of, but you're still only 2 to 3 people away.
I think that's the same way in like Christian community too. Like we all kind of know each other and stuff. Like but so, or whatever, it may be whatever sect you're involved in. If you're Baptist or something, you kind of know other mainline people in that whatever that sect of Christianity. So but yeah, I think that the mother was just to answer your earlier question, I think the mother was involved in that stuff too, and that's why he was son. There was actually a drawing of Eccles that I have somewhere where like he was a kid, and like in 5th grade, somebody wrote on there Satanist. Like, so they knew from an early age he was doing, he was, I think he just grew up in that kind of family, I think.
Well, and
my opinion.
Same. It just makes sense to me that, what her name is escaping me for a moment. The woman that was introduced to Damien through Jesse, she was she gave testimony during the trial and ended up later recanting it a few years later. I can't remember, but
say that again. I'm looking at something else. What girl? I know
there was a woman that was asked by the prosecutor. the prosecution to go and like try and get something out of Damien. It just seemed like
it was the Hollingworth
yes.
person and her kid too, or boy.
Yes. It just seemed like she was so comfortable with doing that. And then everyone kept talking about Damien being a Satanist or an occultist and how everyone was terrified of him. Like everyone knew that he was not a person to mess with. And I have a hard time believing that it was simply just because he was unpredictable, you know? But I do believe that there was definitely some sort of larger network or, you know, cult, for lack of a better term, that was active in the area. I'm sure there still is.
There's no question about it. It's provable. Like they would go to Stonehenge. If you look at Miss Kelly's like first confession among 6 or 7, I mean, I can't count them anymore. Some of them are recorded. They always conveniently leave these out, but he's talking about sacrificing dogs, much like Hosanna, eating them, bonfires, you know, a place of ruin. Stonehenge was an old cotton gin. And then they were like, actually, it's on the cover of my book, or actually some of the spray paintings from Stonehenge. That's why I used them, because it was like a pentagram.
Right.
So this is, and there's a list of a potential network. So the cops were investigating. There's a lot of statement. The police statements are incredible in the West Memphis 3 case, which is why I put him in Abomination, because even this guy, like, it's making these statements like, oh yeah, it's a network, everybody did this, and this guy was busted for pedophilia too. And and his name was I can't remember the statement right now, but he's like, oh yeah, Lucifer, and we were all doing this, and we all knew. And then even Ed Opperman, like, he interviewed somebody about Eccles' girlfriend at the time, Dominique Tier, and her family like were witches or something like that in California. And Ed, like, one of them said, oh yeah, we drink blood. Mom drinks blood. I drink blood. You drink blood. Like, who would make that statement unless you're comfortable with that stuff?
Exactly.
So Eccles's girlfriend's family's into that stuff too. So talk about a small community. That's probably why they're together. I don't even know if Dominique's a real name. One of the interesting things, like one of the key elements of the whole court case was there were like multiple cousins and stuff. So it was the whole Hollingsworth family saw Eccles with Dominique Tier near the scene of the crime on the night of the murders, and they testified in court. Even the kids did. But one of the interesting things about the woman is, like, she saw Dominique Tier grow up. Like, she literally held Dominique Tier when she was in swaddling cloths, like a child. So I would believe that she would be able to see her as a 16, 17-year-old.
Which also would explain why the girlfriend before Dominique was terrified that the one that Damien ran away with, that when he started talking to her about wanting to get her pregnant in order to sacrifice the child, and that girlfriend freaked out, whereas in Dominique had also mentioned the same thing, that she was going to get pregnant in order to sacrifice the child, and she was okay with it. You know,
like that boy who's still alive, their offspring, Dominique Tier and Eccles' kid, who's like, I think in Arizona, and they have arrest records for him. He's lucky to be alive, maybe, in my opinion.
Right.
The other woman in Eccles' book, I know we're kind of off topic, but in Eccles' book, Life After Death, he admits that girl's parents, once they like separated, her parents put her in some kind of like home to like decultize her or whatever, deprogram her.
Right.
I do know her name. Somebody in the chat may know it, but Deanna Holcomb, I think, was her name. Is that one of them?
Yeah,
I think it's Deanna Holcomb, but like her parents put her into some kind of special housing to like get her away from all that stuff. So it's pretty wild.
So I do agree it's kind of not like directly related, but I do think it does pertain to all of this, because once again, these are networks, and these networks are all connected at a certain point. I mean, they kind of have to be. Otherwise, they're not going to sustain themselves.
Yeah, we did that show on the Satanic Panic with Austin
Right.
And Austin and I did a show where we these are all these pedo groups from the 80s and 90s were all networked.
Yes.
They literally had overlapping people with Aquino and Gacy and Atlanta child murderers.
Right.
And all these people moving around. Yeah.
I think that is the largest misconception regarding this underground, this criminal underground, this black market, is that these are, although they might be independent cults, they might be independent groups or whatever, it's all one group, really. When you zoom out far enough, this cult and the Hosanna Church stuff is tied to Epstein somehow. It's tied to the West Memphis Three. When you zoom out far enough, eventually the octopus reveals itself, right? Because these criminals hang out with other criminals, like they're not going to not hang out with these people. And you can kind of piece that together with, certain testimonies that have been given over the years. There's his name is escaping me. I should have brought this up ahead of time, but there's a former Satanist that does interviews every now and then. He's actually, somebody in the chat might know, he's a blind man. Can't remember his name, but he's kind of like an Illuminati whistleblower. And he talks about in his younger years where he kind of jumped from coven to coven to cult because they were all kind of connected. Like he was graduating to more serious cults as he got older. And it started with him basically this one family unit was like the lowest level coven of all of these magic practicing Satanists. And then they introduced him to another cult, which was ran by somebody. And then he joined that group. And then he graduated to a next one that was an even bigger organization. And this is just the ultimate structure of these. It's just like anything else in life. It's just what they handle is not normal. It's this is just like, because in my opinion, the hierarchical structure of like politics or society or anything is like the natural order of things. It's fairly natural for things like this to be structured in such a way. It's just what sort of group are you is, whether it's going to be good or not, but that the organization itself, that the structure, the pyramid structure it exists. It's the natural order of things. And even if people try not to, it will eventually end up being organized this way because of, well, it's just how things are, so.
And that's the common perception. It goes back to this kind of stovepiping where
Right.
people's perceptions are deliberately narrowed into a smaller worldview. And if you read enough of Crowley, like I have, like he's connected to everything. And he encouraged all the occultists to join every other occult order. So like Crowley himself said, like he had enough regalia and signs and things to cover an elephant. And so oftentimes like the cops, they're just not interested in seeing these larger networks. Eccles to me is networked. He by his own admission, he used to cross over the bridge into Memphis and meet some guy, some older guy, like some middle-aged guy. Like it's kind of unusual if you're a teen to go meet some middle-aged people, and they're like lose. William Clem Bly is the memory. That's the statement of the guy who talks about Lucifer. Elvis Clem Bly, like a real Southern name.
Right.
Elvis. But that if you can just type in Elvis Clem Bly and read that yourself, people, it shows that there's something else going on. It's not a matter for a criminal court to bring up, but it has a very True Detective vibe because this guy was like busted for pedophilia and he was a real Southerner, not real not the brightest bulb, so to speak, but like that's kind of the rarity of West Memphis, is like Eccles himself is kind of a bright guy, actually. Growing up in a place of very kind of lower middle class, working class hero type people.
Right. And so kind of to bring it back full circle and back to Hosanna, I think the thing that scares me the most about this case specifically is that almost everyone involved looks so normal. Yeah. I mean, with Damien wears it on his sleeve, like it's clear he's an occultist, there's no hiding it. But these people, especially Lumonica.
You can just go back and see his picture.
Yeah.
Looks like a high school football coach or something.
Right. And like, if it wasn't for this, you wouldn't have been able to pick these people out of crowd, Yeah. They're so normal. And it's almost just like anybody else that are involved in these sorts of crimes. It's just, they're so normal. Life has a funny way of hiding the bad people because they don't have a big twirly mustache and, wear a cape and a top hat. So, I do find it interesting, though, is that with this case, I mean, it's blatant what was being done. It's blatant the way in which this is talked about and everything and all the coverage. And yet, for some reason, even like I said, that the FBI agent said that there was no satanic connection. It's like,
it's the same thing happened with the West Memphis. I mean, it's the satanic panic stuff we've talked about.
Right.
People can go check our old show. It's just like the evidence says something different, guys. I mean, this whole thing is just like feces and urine and animals and shape shifting. Like, come on.
Right. So I find it interesting that Nick, how do you pronounce his last name? Pizzolatto?
Pizzolatto, I think.
Yeah. Hinted that the case was inspired by HBO's massive hit True Detective, in which detectives Marty Hart and Rust Cole play Woody Harrelson, Matthew McConaughey, uncover a string of ritualistic satanic murders committed under the cover of a powerful evangelical establishment in South Louisiana. Let's see. There's something in here that was important to read that I was going to bring up. Let's see. Major Carpenter 62 recalled, LaMonica walked into my office and sat down, just as calm as you and me talking now. I was detective supervisor at the time. When he came in, he basically thought that after he told us what he did, he was just going to go on about his business of the day. Listening to him, here we're all Christian. It kind of floored me. You're talking about a man who professes to be a preacher, a pastor, and a church leader abusing children and worshiping Satan. I'm an old guy. I'm coming up to retire in a couple of years. I thought I'd seen it all, and sometimes I reckon you have seen it all, only in different ways. Then something like this happens and it stays with you. In his confession seen by Online Mail, LaMonica sat down and announced, quote, I want to talk about the dedication to Satan of a baby. It was held at the church upstairs in what was called the youth room. He went on to describe a room where all the windows were covered in black, like black paper. Keep it dark. There was a pentagram in the middle of the floor, he said, and a book of spells and temptations. On this occasion, he claimed there were 5 others present. Austin Trey Bernard III, then 36, LaMonica's wife, Robin, 45, church member Paul Fontenot, I believe, 21, sheriff's deputy Chris Labatt, 24, and Patricia Trish Pearson, 56. All but Labatt later pleaded guilty to charges ranging from aggravated rape to sexual battery to obstruction of justice. Labatt was charged with child pornography, but subsequently the charges were dismissed, which is wild. Get out of here with that. I mean, it's wild to me. People will still look at this and just deny that anything ever happened. And there were people, from my understanding, from what little research I have done, which is, slowly changing as I'm focusing on this case more and more, but there were actually more arrests that were supposed to happen, and they didn't end up happening. There were in the show you did with the California crew, mentioned something about there were other names that were brought up by the victims, by the survivors, and they were never identified, at least as far as we know, right?
Right. They only got the 2 guys for life sentences. I don't know how the other people, they were charged. I guess they pled guilty. So I don't know if their sentences were carried out or what's going on.
So like
it's been 20 years, 22 years.
Have you ever looked and seen who's still in? Well, obviously the people that are charged with life are still
Monica
there, and
Austin,
Alan,
Bernard.
yeah, Austin. That's right, Austin Bernard. Other than that, have you seen anything about where anyone else is?
I have not. I haven't looked into it. I mean, I'm sure I could track them down.
Right.
Just doing the legwork.
Do you know anything about any of the victims? Because it seems pretty quiet. I mean, even LaMonica's boys ended up recanting their statements a few years after the fact.
They sure did, yeah. No, I don't. I think most of those people just fled away, and I don't know. I don't know. I'm interested. Nobody seemed to want to come forward. I mean, Epstein, there's so many victims and so many testimonies now, but this one, they don't seem to really want to keep the story alive, it seems like.
So it says here, LaMonica stated, quote, "They would start off like a church service, but it was satanic music." I'm not sure what they mean by that. I have a hard time believing, though, that it would be like death metal or something. It was probably like classical music or something. There were candles burning, dark red candle holders, and the dedication of a baby into Satan with this pentagram. She was put in the middle in a black dress. He described chanting around the child, Trey Bernard's daughter, who Austin Trey Bernard admitted to inappropriately having relations with his daughter. She was barely 1 year old at the time. And when they dedicated Bernard's daughter, they were all standing in a circle, girls in the middle of the pentagram, candles burning, everyone chanting. They killed a cat, drained its blood in order for everyone to partake in the blood drinking, and apparently they poured the remaining blood all over the child, which, now this is just what's been reported. So whatever was never reported, I can only imagine is so much worse than what we know.
Usually what happens is these are kind of predicate acts leading up to the worst of all acts, human sacrifice or some kind of humans. Right. So when you see I've studied this for so long. When you see all these other things, that's what's next. That's what happened with the West Memphis 3. They they escalated all the way up that ladder, and the end was what happened, in my opinion, what happened on May 5th, 1993. And so
Right.
what else is going on here? I think there's a lot of questions to be asked. I don't know if these guys may have told the whole story, much like the cop said in the Vice documentary.
Right. You know, I automatically just start wondering, you know, was this also a child porn production ring? You know, were they producing snuff films? You know,
Trafficking? Were
yeah,
they trafficking?
of
If they're bringing a
children.
bunch of kids around this youth center and people are coming and going, and there's a huge parking lot,
Right.
what else? There's no evidence of how they made money. I mean, there was the cop, but these guys, it didn't seem like LaMonica had a job other than
Right.
being a pastor.
Right. I mean, were they running drugs, guns, all of the above? You know, I don't know. There's so much here that's not quite answered, and the fact that this is not a larger case is like larger in the sense of being talked about is wild to me. Absolutely wild. Other than the, you know, the satanic panic, you're crazy if you talk about this stuff. Do you think there's like any other reason why this one's just kind of swept under the rug? Like, do you think it's maybe because it's so blatant that it's just ignored?
I think it's a good question. I don't know. I think it's time and interest and satanic panic and the interest of the corporate media, the kind of time frames where they don't
Right.
do a lot of deeper research. I also think that the internet makes it easier to put all this together. So you know, we can watch the Vice documentary and look at the newspaper articles
Right.
and research and put it all together so you see it from all of its many facets, not just like one article like this. So I think that, and also kind of grows in importance, especially this one attached to True Detective as the background for True Detective.
Right. Why do you think that this was the case that he decided to choose? Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. Like if he was wanting to write on that subject matter, that he's local. I think he's from Baton Rouge. I know Pezzolatto is from Louisiana. So, and I know that he writes on a different variety of subject, much like anybody who writes fiction. He writes other dramas, and he's written the True Detective stuff. But I think that he's also featured in the one of the episodes too. He has
right. Yeah, I did see that where he was the bartender in the gay bar.
But so I think, you know, just like anybody else, they're looking for a story, or do they have a story? But if somebody who's there within like 100 miles, and this story I mean, they say in that article, the Daily Mail article or the Mail Online article, it reverberated through the Christian community. So he may have personally had this reverberation went through the whole community down there in South Louisiana, and like, wow, this is really dark. So I think that may have been his inspiration. There's more to be researched on how True Detective came together. It is interesting because it is unique and it deals with this subject matter, and it seemed to be attached by two kind of actors who were, you know, doing romance stuff and you know, comedy movies. I think, why would these two people say, yeah, this is what I want to be involved in?
Right.
And I think it was it's a smart decision for them, because people will keep watching this over and over. Like I've watched it like 2 or 3 times now.
Right.
So I think that how this group came together for this thing is there's more to the story. I think that's important.
Yeah, most definitely. I just find it interesting that, of course, the satanic panic narrative is, you know, this stuff doesn't exist. Satanists don't hurt children because it says so on their website. So obviously they're not lying, you know, and but yet these cases keep popping up all over the place. Like even just in preparation for this show, I was just searching this case specifically. And even in the search results, there were case after case after case of this happening. In fact, I pulled up a Daily Mail article, it looks like from 2023. The title of the article is Satanic Child Abuse Ring Shut Victims in Oven, Force Them to Kill Animals, and Film Themselves. Well, I'm just going to leave that out just for, the sake of not getting the stream nuked. But 11 people were members of a pedophile ring. The group is alleged to have abused children in Glasgow, Scotland, over 10 years. So very clearly a lot of people if it was over a 10-year period. It is claimed members of the group abused 3 young children, at least 3 young children that they know of. Glasgow High Court heard the children were forced to take part in witchcraft too. This is another case I'd never heard of, but this just keeps happening over and over and over and over again. And somehow Satanists don't harm children, William. So
that's one of their things that they that's like one of their commonly used phrases, right? Like Satanism isn't about harming children, when Crowley's like raping 2-year-olds by his own admission in his diary. So it's just no more lies and stuff.
Right. I just find it incredibly interesting. In fact, we've got an Australian case right now, same thing, is busting up a massive online pedophile, from what I understand, a child pornography and snuff ring,
There's one in Israel. There's a case in Israel that went all the way to their Knesset. And people died. The girl who came forward to talk about it died. So, like, you had Yao of God. You've got so many. That's Brazil.
Right.
So it's endemic. It's there. It's, you have all these cases with Savile. You have Epstein. So there's just a very dark, and I think that's what True Detective keyed into, is there's just a dark underbelly in the human experience, and it gets super dark.
Right.
Epstein's super dark. There are kids missing, kids being raped. There's infants being taken away. Like, it's really, there's hints of human sacrifice that people haven't come across yet, but it's there, and murder. So it's you don't know like what these guys did to cover stuff up. You don't know if there's suspicious deaths around this church or anything. Like, you don't know what crimes they've gotten away with. It's almost like it's these, if they're doing this stuff, they're probably doing other, it's easy to deal drugs or poison somebody or facilitate hits and things like that.
Right. I actually have this huge list of all of these cases involving Satanism on some level. Here's another headline from 2016. The new sex abuse scandal, 2,400 doctors implicated by patients. More than 2,400 U.S. doctors have been sanctioned for sexually abusing their patients, according to a new report. Another headline, how can social services lose 18,000 children and not look for them? 2019, out of the Arizona Central. Internal prison files suggest Epstein suicide cover-up. Yeah, no surprise there. Let's see. There was a Florida grand jury focused on unaccompanied migrant children, blasts feds in new report talking about all the migrant children being trafficked that were just given to foster households, and now there's no record of them. Interesting. Let's see. There was a bunch more in this. The point of me bringing that up, it's just that this just keeps happening over and over and over. And, in my opinion, I think that this is probably one of it is the largest issue of our time. And it's being completely ignored. In fact, not even just ignored, it is being covered up clearly, which is honestly one of the largest reasons why I decided to start speaking out about my experiences as a Satanist. I didn't want to for a long time because, I don't think it was really that important, or at least I felt as though it wasn't super important. But I do kind of feel that it is important to at least explain from, the aspect that this stuff is real, and it's a lot more common than people would think. And also it's not something that should be taken lightly. Whether, people believe that this stuff is a joke or not, like, I agree, like these people are ridiculous, right? But also there's a lot of people that take this very seriously. They take their faith a hell of a lot more serious than a lot of Christians that I know. And it makes people incredibly dangerous. In fact, something I find interesting is that I'll hear, I heard this when I was a Satanist, is that LaVeyan Satanists are just they're fakes, or they're just the mall goth equivalent of Satanists, like they're not real Satanists or whatever. It's the people like Luciferians or Crowleyites or groups like 09A or whatever are the real Satanists. And it's like, no, that's not even close to true, because what makes LaVeyan Satanism so dangerous is that, for one, it's accessible. It's super accessible. But it is based upon, the four tenets of Satanism, which is basically like ultimate egoism, social Darwinism, and then let's see, what were the other two? Social Darwinism, eugenics, and the fourth one's escaping me. But these are all four tenets that you find across all versions of Satanism. It doesn't matter. Pick your flavor. It's like Baskin Robbins, the 31 flavors or whatever. And these are the four tenets that will literally be found in all of them. And LaVeyan Satanism made it palatable for the average American. LaVey is like almost a household name. He's done more for Satanism than almost anyone other than maybe Ken Lanning. So it's just incredibly interesting. I really hope that people are kind of waking up to this, with the amazing work that you do. It's I think it's just so much more important than people actually give it credit for. Because this actually affects all of us, So there was one thing I wanted to ask you directly, and it's, let me see if I can find it real quick. While I look for that,
there's one thing, like, I've seen so many evil people that at a certain point, like now, if I see somebody doing an evil act or as part of it, I always just, their default is they're probably Satanists and they're networked. Like that's so like and then eventually pop out like Epstein, like, oh, he's just an independent pedophile. And then like, no, this guy is a networked murderer, subverting the culture, drug runner, possibly.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I'm not saying he was actively involved in murder, but there's elements within those files where they're like, oh yeah, I've got this ex-special forces guy to do this job. Like, who says that? You don't need a special forces guy to mow your freaking lawn. You only get them because they've been in action in the past. So it's just to follow up on your add to what you said, it's there. There's no question. People are very dangerous. It's the cause of so many like crimes and wrongdoings and all that stuff.
Right. Well, and do you believe that at least I believe that it's at the center of so much more. Just like, to reference Simon Dovey's work again, right at the very beginning, he has this quote from Hunter S. Thompson, which I'll read real quick. It's there was always a rash of kidnappings and abductions of school children in the football months. Preteens of both sexes are traditionally seized and grabbed off the streets by gangs of organized perverts who traditionally give them as Christmas gifts to each other to be personal sex slaves and playthings. Most of them are obviously wrong and evil and ugly, but at least they are traditional. From Hunter S. Thompson. And to me, let me know what you think. It seems as though that this sort of subculture seems to be at the center of a lot more crime in this country than people would ever give it credit for.
Yeah, I think so. 100%. I mean, I think that it's because they own the media and they've spiked stories in the past. I can't remember what the girl's name was on national TV, but she's like, I had that Epstein story, and then they told me to spike it. So the cover up on the whole Epstein network has been there for 3 decades at least, and they're doing just horrible stuff. So imagine the other stuff they want to cover up. So I think that something in the culture has changed within my lifetime, where the Christianity's been taken out of the public square, or just even basic human like decency, like at a basic level, is gone. Like, people take it for granted now. Now it's just a big scam culture, and the people who are celebrated are dirtbags. It wasn't always like that. And so it's happened very recently. So I think that it's part of like the cultural rot and decay. And it's really spiritual. Like, it's the spiritual rot and spiritual decay.
Right.
There's no reason why. It's not a surprise that LaVey ascended, Aquino ascended, as Christianity was taken out of the public square and public places and schools and things like that.
Right.
So it's part of a larger malaise, and it's done intentionally. Like, I mean, if Epstein's really primarily involved in power and money, like, there's hundreds of other Epsteins probably. There's probably maybe not as bad as Epstein, but people financing transgenderism and sexual dysphoria and gender dysphoria, like literally financing rapists to come into your country. There are people just doing evil stuff. So it's really taking place with the rise of evil, and that's why this is all downplayed and mocked and ignored and omitted. And it hasn't stopped.
What, if any, connections to Hosanna are there regarding Crowley? Did you notice any?
No, but I mean, like I said earlier, like, why didn't they ask questions? The cops never really investigated and asked questions about what specific kind of like occultism they're involved in. But it is interesting. They actually mentioned Crowley in True Detective when they're talking to the lawnmower guy. It's like, oh yeah, over in Crowley, and I don't think that's by mistake.
Right. What do you think the one, at least maybe not the biggest, but one of the most common misconceptions about Crowley is?
That he's a dabbler. They always just call him a dabbler. It's such a joke. They don't even
I
look
hate
into
that
anything.
word.
I know, it's so it's repeated all the time. Oh, Aleister Crowley, a dabbler in the occult. The guy wrote book after book after book. He wrote like some of the most important referenced books in occultism, guys. Magic and Theory and Practice. Like, you don't put that together. He's really a scholar. The guy could have been a great scholar at a university, at a top university, Oxford, Cambridge, somewhere in the States. But he was really just a scholar and aggregator of the occult globally. Like, he really stands. That's why he's so important, and sets him aside from, middling intellects like LaVey or some of these other people. It's because he was freaking brilliant. The guy's output is extraordinary. Like, he could write nonfiction, fiction, mysteries, poetry. He was really a literateur. That's what I call him. So this whole thing, like, it's just another, it's really an epidemic of superficiality. These people don't even pick anything up and do any research. Because if they did any actual research on Crowley, they'd go, wow, this guy knew a lot. He knew a lot of people, and he's constantly writing. Like, he did. You want to talk about triumph of egoism? Like, he treated women like crap, never had a relationship with his kids or anything like that. But he was not a dabbler. And he was continually, like, at the end of his life, he's writing Magic Without Tears. Like, he's literally compiling stuff about the efficacy and application of magical principles to your life all the way at the end. When he died at 72, he's still talking about it in the late 60s and 70s. So he really lived up to his magical name, which is Perdomo or Perdomo, which is I will endure to the end. He was
right. It kind of seems like almost everything goes back to him. Like,
it goes through him. He's like every occultist goes back to Crowley. And then they either change it or turn it or flip it around, just like Eccles. It's all Crowley.
Right.
So he's probably the most important occultist of the age, like the post Renaissance or something like that. Like, there's just nobody who compares to him in the Western world. There are other people who started their own, sects, cultic sects or whatever, like Aquino, LaVey, Myatt, some of these chaos magicians, people who started the Illuminati. The Thanateros had a lot of very notable figures in it. But yeah, Crowley kind of stands alone. I gotta run.
Yeah.
We're past the mark.
Just about to wrap up here. So let people know where they can find you, William. And I definitely want to get you back. There's more I want to dig into this and True Detective itself. Definitely kind of wanted to do a precursor thing, but there's some specific stuff I want to get into at a later date. So let's get you back at some point. But let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, it's William Ramsey Investigates is my podcast. It's in the top 0.5% podcasts in the world. And I've written 5 books. You can read books on Crowley and West Memphis 3. You can just buy them on Amazon or my website, William Ramsey Investigates. And I have an active Patreon. I talk to people there all the time, all day. It's the best way to contact me is through my Patreon or email, which is williamramseyinvestigates@protonmail.com. Send me an email. Thanks for having me. It's glad to be with you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for coming back, and feel free to take off if you need to get out of here, and I'll wrap up on my end. So thank you, sir. All right. Well, that was an introduction to the Hosanna church scandal. This is, in my opinion, actually a way more important case than I think people are maybe not giving it credit for, but it's just one of these cases that definitely does not get talked about nearly enough. Let me know, leave a comment on the video. What would you like to know about this case? Because I am going to bring William back for another episode so we can get into some specifics. So if there's anything regarding this case or anything that may be tangentially related to this case, feel free in the comments to let me know what you would like to know. And I will gather all that up. We'll get another stream put together, and I will get all of those answered and everything. So hopefully everyone has enjoyed this stream. I always have such a great time with William. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this as well. It was such a great time. But on that note, we're going to get out of here. So before you do, make sure hit the like, share, subscribe, all of these things. It lets the big tech overlords know that more people should watch this. And this is the best way, the absolute best way to make sure to help grow my channel, to get this information out there, to make sure that all of you fine people will continue to get the best content that I can possibly produce for all of you. Because really that's what I'm trying to do, is try to provide you with entertainment as much as this stuff can be entertaining. but also informative, and also talk about stuff that the mainstream media would never touch with the 10-foot fucking pole. So, but anyone that does want to do a little bit more, you can go to allmylinks.com/rise to liberty. You can go over to donate to my Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/rise to liberty. But you can go get some merch over at risetoliberty.store. Honestly, the best thing you can do is go to allmylinks.com/rise to liberty. That pulls up everything that you can do to help out the channel. All of my social media stuff, everything is right there. Highly recommend that. I even have an Amazon list if you guys want to help out that way. You can send donations. Don't donate through YouTube ever to any creator. YouTube takes 30%. Fuck that. Just saying. But I've got to buy me a coffee. You can donate directly to PayPal, Cash App, all of these things. Like I said, there's the merch store. I've got more merch coming. I've got more shows coming next week. So, like I said, hit the subscribe. Follow me on multiple platforms so you never lose touch. There is one comment I wanted to actually bring up before we get out of here. Let's see. Not sure if you're still around, but Big J21, the book Michelle Remembers, started the original Satanic Panic. No, it didn't. This is a very common narrative that this book is just like the most powerful book of all time. No, it's not. It didn't. In fact, I've actually started breaking this down in a written article series that I am doing. Part 2 will be out. Let's see, what's today? Friday the 10th. It will be out Monday the 13th. In fact, you know what? Maybe I'll even drop it tomorrow. But I am going through the Satanic Panic step by step, all the way back Satanic Panic, pre-1980s. We're going all the way back to the turn of the century, where I believe some of the foundation for the Satanic Panic was actually set. So somebody said that the most powerful book of all time is the Bible. Yes, it is. So, but it's just funny the way that Michelle Remembers gets talked about, like it's all of a sudden the book gets released and, you know, everyone's in hysterics. You know, it's funny. But I wanted to address this. Also, I wanted to plug Beware the Mockingbird over on Substack, which is my Substack. There's going to be some more shorter podcast content over there. It's going to be free. Well, some of it's going to be free. Some of it will be pay. But go check that out. And if you guys want to know more about the Satanic Panic, that's really why I'm bringing it up. We will be getting to Michelle Remembers. We'll go through the whole thing. But make sure and subscribe to Beware the Mockingbird on Substack, which you can find once again by going to allmylinks.com/rise to liberty. There's some awesome stuff over there. So once again, thank you all so much for tuning in. You guys are really why I do this. You guys are just great. I have some of the best fans in the world, and everyone else that is new over here, thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, leave comments in the comment section down below. Things you want to know about this case. We'll get William back. We'll answer these questions. And from there, I think that's pretty much it. I think that is pretty much it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. So other than that, until next time, stay free, my friends.